So about 3 months ago, I got knocked off my bike while I was out on a training ride, and I just wanted to share my experience of kind of what's happened since then and how I've gone about resolving the issues that I had around my bike, my personal injuries, getting a new bike sorted and that sort of thing, because for me, I found it quite difficult to navigate and find any decent information on navigating the circumstance that I found myself in, which obviously was through no fault of my own. Obviously, I don't ever want to go through this ever again, because it has been and is still ongoing quite a time-consuming experience, and we all live busy lives. I definitely do, and it's headspace that I really could do without having to occupy. But that said, it happened, and it was an accident at the end of the day. I don't know for sure what has happened with the gentleman in question, but he has admitted liability. He was, or seemed to be, a decent enough chap when I spoke to him, and thankfully he stopped. So yeah, I just wanted to share kind of where I'm at the moment, what had happened to me, and hopefully the video will help anybody else that's in a similar situation. So I guess we need to start at this kind of start. So at the end of February, I was out on a training ride, perfectly fine day, sunny, dry, and I was in the middle. I was on a road that I normally use. It's wide. I always feel safe on it. Yes, the cars are going fast, but generally they give you plenty of space, and nobody really gets close. But obviously on this day, somebody did. They tried to go past me, and I think they just clipped me with their wing mirror or something along those lines. All I know is that I ended up in the middle of the road. I was able to quickly get up and move to the side of the road with my bicycle. Thankfully there was nothing coming behind, because like I said, it's a fast road. An ambulance was called, the police arrived. Apparently there was an air ambulance on its way as well, but thankfully none of that was needed. I was seen by the paramedics on the scene, and was offered to go to a hospital. I had quite a badly cut hand, which they patched up while I was there, but ultimately they couldn't do a great deal else for me. I was walking around. I did have what we suspected was probably a fractured rib or a broken rib, but I had the option to go to the hospital, which they kind of said, well, if it is broken, there's not a lot they could do. So I opted to go home, because that's really all I wanted to do, was go home, see the kids, see my wife, and really just lie down for a little bit. Aside from the personal injuries, my bike was damaged. It certainly wasn't rideable. There was a lot of scuffing on the bike. The rear hanger was definitely bent, and where the impact of my bars had hit the road, the bar tape was torn, the bars were scuffed, and there was scratches all over the wheels. So that was, as any cyclist will relate, that was my first reaction. Was my bike okay? I wasn't that bothered because I was walking around. So yeah, that was the accident as it kind of happened. What then went, like the days after, when I was looking at what had actually been damaged, aside from my bike, there was also my helmet, which had a massive crack in it. Honestly, if I wasn't wearing a helmet, that would have been my head. Damaged clothing, damaged shoes, and yeah, so it was quite an expensive day in terms of kit and bike. And so the days after, so my bike's insured for any accidents. So that was kind of my first port of call. What do I do to get the bike resolved? So the chap that I spoke to wanted to go outside of the insurance, which talking to a few people, I was recommended not to do that. So I Googled it, and even that was still unclear as to what I did, because ultimately I didn't want to jeopardise my case. It wasn't my fault. I didn't want to claim on my insurance. So what do I need to do? I ended up posting something on social media, and a number of people pointed me towards an organisation called CAMS, which is an accident management service. I was also advised to log it with my insurance, who they were the first people that I wanted for them to deal with, because although I didn't want to claim it on my insurance because it wasn't my fault, that was kind of the most logical thing in my head. However, I wasn't particularly happy with my insurance company and how it kind of panned out over the next few days. So it was all done via email. They didn't seem to understand that there was a third party involved. And then when it did twig that there was a third party involved, the advice was that they would pay out, but then claim it back off the third party insurance, which kind of didn't sound right. It sounded like, to me, the third party insurance should be the people that I should be receiving the money from, and that I shouldn't have to be claiming through my insurance, because ultimately I don't want it to affect my premium as well. So I got in touch with CAMS, who were super helpful, and they listened, and I genuinely felt that they wanted to help. So it kind of went from there. The way that they had explained it to me was that they would pay out for the bike, and if there was so they would only take on the case if there was a good chance of them winning a personal injury claim. And by the sounds of it from them, there was, because there was a third party involved who, from my perspective at the scene, had admitted liability. It was on record with the police, I believe. And so they kind of said, yes, we'll take on your case and we will pay you for your damaged bicycle, but there's a process that we need to follow. So literally within a few days, a solicitor had been in touch with me. I'd filled out some forms that kind of said, this is what's happened to my bike. I'd sent across all the pictures and things like that. And so I kind of felt like at that stage it was starting to move. But to get to that point, it had taken me 2 weeks to, one, work out what I needed to do, and two, to get some sort of response out of my insurance company, which I ultimately wasn't happy with. So that's the whole point of this video, because I just want people who are or have been in the same situation as me to have a rough idea of what they need to do. And so yeah, I would 100% recommend CAMS, particularly if you have had a third party involved. What I would say with the whole CAMS process, and I don't know whether this is because of the bike that I've got and how I ended up ultimately purchasing the bike, but it did take quite a long time. So we are now at month 3. I had my accident on the 22nd of Feb. It's now the 22nd of May. And I had the bike received about 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks today, in fact. So my bike was from a company called Virusvelo. It's a Factor Ostro. So I specifically wanted to get a replacement for the bike that I already had. What CAMS did was they had somebody value my old bike and give them a price that they needed to pay out. There was some toing and froing, which did cause some delay, because the value that the valuer gave me wasn't, in my mind, enough to cover the value of a new bike. Because ultimately, when you are in an accident, the whole point of the insurance is to put you back to where you were before. So I'd already done a bit of research on what the value of a new bike was going to be, because the model that I had was outdated. They didn't do it anymore. So my whole target was to get me back on the road with a bike that is equivalent to what I'd bought initially. Now, I bought my initial bike 2 years ago, and so the value of a new model that was kind of standard for the Ostro was about £1,500 more than I paid for. Inflation, I'm guessing, bits and bobs that it costs more. And so I suppose what I'm saying is, if you get a valuation, which I did, and you assume that people do these things right, but I'd also had a conversation with a few people that had said, don't accept the first offer that they give you, because ultimately they'll lowball it. And I didn't get the impression that was the case with the valuer. So I went back to him, and I'm glad I did, because I was about to sign the paper and say, yeah, okay, I'll take what you give me and I'll just put in the difference. Because ultimately I just wanted it to be done and dusted. I wanted to get back on the road and I wanted to get the process going to get myself my new bike. What I ended up doing was going back to the valuer saying, look, this doesn't feel right. And he actually went back through the bike builder and said, actually, I've made a mistake here. I've put the wrong components in. And I could see that because I used the same bike builder to get the quote. So the important thing there was that I went back and just made sure I was happy that I was getting what I wanted out of the situation. Because ultimately, if I'd signed the paper and said, yes, I'm happy with that amount, that would be that. So yeah, ultimately, I got the bike that I needed to replace the bike that I had, and they paid out in full. They paid it directly to Virus-Velo. Virus-Velo built the bike to the spec that they basically took the spec that I had before, put exactly the same components on. None of the gearing components have changed over the 2 years. So it was a like for like model as at today. So happy with that. Didn't have to pay out a penny. So that was that. Next steps then were to deal with the personal injury claim and financial losses. So this is the bit that's taking more time and I can't really see an end to. So I've had to fork out some additional money on kit, shoes, helmet, and other bits and pieces like the wrap for the bike and things like that, which ultimately has come out of my pocket at the moment. And part of the process here is to, one, deal with a personal injury, but also to get compensated for the amounts of money that I've lost through buying new kit. So that's ultimately going through the solicitors, and should be able to claim back everything that I've spent. So it's things like my jacket was damaged, my jersey was damaged, that was underneath that, leg warmers, shorts, shoes were damaged. I'd only had the shoes about 2 days. And like I said right at the start, my helmet was cracked. So those have all gone down on a list and they've gone to the solicitor, who will then try and ultimately claim it back from the third party. Because just the clothing alone, if I was to buy it at retail price, was probably about 1,500 quid, so not cheap. Cams did give me, or have given me, some allowance to replace. So basically what they do is they give you up to £500 worth of clothing. You need to order it from one place. So for me, that was Sigma. And I managed to get my shoes replaced, my shorts have been replaced, and I was going to get a jersey, but there's been an issue with that. So ultimately that will be replaced. But anything else above that, because they will only pay up to £500, that needs to go down on the financial losses sheet. And then on the financial losses sheet, there's also, if you've had some time off work, I'm self-employed, so anything that I think that I've lost in terms of money, loss of earnings, that's gone down on the sheet. Any medical appointments that you might have attended, that'll go down on the sheet, or if you've paid for anything privately, that'll have to go down on the sheet as well. And as part of the process, your responsibility as the claimant is that you need to make sure that the claim doesn't, overinflate. So that then involves going to physio appointments if they've been given, medical appointments if they've also been requested. So I've had a medical assessment and physio appointments. All have been local. They've all been arranged locally because they must have a panel of people involved in that do these things. And you know, if the offer's there, you might as well take it, because you don't want any of the injuries to cause you a problem down the road. So yeah, I mean, at the moment it's still ongoing. I'm not 100% sure where the personal injury claim is at this stage. I've given all the bits, filled out the forms that I need to with regards to my financial losses, but it can take up to 2 years to get that money back. So it's a pain, because I've had to fork out quite a chunk of money getting some of my stuff replaced. Thankfully, I don't need a jacket right now, so that's saved a bit of money, but I will have to get one for the winter. So yeah, I think in summary, it's not been a straightforward process, and I hope this video helps to kind of navigate your situation. I've got a new bike now, but it took nearly 3 months. Could have been less, I think, if I bought a kind of stock bike from the shop. The company CAMS, they basically said if you find a bike in a shop, they will pay the bike shop and then you can take it away. The bike that I was buying was from a company in Norwich. It was all custom built and built to order, so that's part of where the delay, I think, came from. And because of the value of the bike, you know, it was important for me to get that right so that I wouldn't be out of pocket. Like I said, the injury claim's ongoing. Not sure when that's going to conclude. I'm not out to get loads from the injury claim. I'm not particularly that bothered about the injury claim, if I'm honest. I just want to get the money back for the kit, anything that's been damaged, because ultimately I'm fine now. But at the same time, it's not my fault that I got injured. You know, I didn't want that, of course, and I wouldn't want it to happen again. And you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, perhaps I should be compensated in some way, shape or form. But ultimately, all I want is my stuff back as it was. So yeah, I'll do another update at some stage, hopefully once all the bits and bobs have gone through for the personal injury claim and the money that I've got back for clothing and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope this helps, and if you have been involved in an accident, I hope that it hasn't been too serious, and I hope that this video helps you to navigate what I have found quite an unclear situation or process. Yeah, good luck with it all, and I hope you a speedy recovery. If you found it helpful, please do like and subscribe, and I'll catch you again in the next one.